And welcome back, 88.9 WLRY, live online, WLRY.org. Again, my special guest this morning, Wally Ziola with Operation Christmas Child and Samaritan's Purse. Just back from Uganda, from the trip. You were there, I believe, May 19th through May 26th. Is that correct?
Right, and some of that time was traveling. It took a long time to get there. We had a 2-hour flight to Atlanta and then an 8.5-hour flight to Amsterdam.
Wow.
And then another about 8.5 hours down to WLRY, which is in Africa, and then a quick jump over to Kampala.
Now, were you able to plant a church, layover time in Amsterdam, or no?
No, but God actually came through and surprised us. We met Katie Davis, who wrote a book called Kisses from Katie, and it is about children in Uganda. She's adopted 13 girls and has a ministry in Uganda, in Gigi, Uganda. And somebody even in our group said, wouldn't it be amazing to meet her someday if we had time to go see her? Well, she was on our flight.
Oh, how cool. So
God, one of the God's miracles.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about some of the other miracles that you witnessed as you presented the shoe boxes to these children.
Oh, there was a great excitement, and God moves through these shoe boxes, and we're taught as we pack these shoe boxes and process them to leave them as they're intended to be. If they're full of socks, leave them that way. That's the way God intends. And I witnessed his hand deliverance of shoe boxes to children and answering the desires of their hearts. There was a little girl, and her mother was there with her at the distribution, and she said, my daughter's always wanted a baby doll. And there was this big baby doll in her box, and she was ecstatic. She couldn't believe that her desire had finally been answered.
How do you decide which child gets which box? Does God decide that? Is it
God,
random?
well, we break it down into boys and girls, and there's ages 2 to 4, 5 to 9, and then 10 to 14, I believe, and I hope I'm not wrong on that. But you're just kind of guided who to give it to. If it's a very special box intended for a very specific person, I packed 2 shoe boxes. I packed a boy box and a girl box, and I was guided on who to give those to.
Okay.
So God intervenes, and he makes sure that the boxes get to who it was intended to be given to.
So in other words, you didn't pop the lid and go, okay, this has a baby doll. We'll give this one to the girl that wants a baby doll.
No.
It was God's orchestration.
They stand in line, and I believe God's in everything. He puts the person in line that's going to get that shoe box. And then when they open it and you see the response, you know it was only God that did it. There was a boy who opened his shoe box, and we're in the middle of Africa. He got winter gloves, and he was so excited because he'd wished for gloves because he rides a motorcycle or a dirt bike or something, and his hands get raw from riding that bike on the dusty roads, and he was ecstatic to have gloves in his shoebox. It fulfilled a desire of his heart.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I gave my boy box to an older boy, and I sat down and I talked to him, and I said, well, what do you think of the shoebox? Or I said, what are you good at? What do you like to do? And he said, I like to preach. I said, you like to preach? I said, are you telling me that you're going to become a pastor someday? He says, yes, I'll become a pastor. And I said, wow. Tell me your favorite Bible verse. And he said, well, I like Genesis and I like Exodus. And I thought, wow. I said, do you ever feel like you're like a Moses? And he said, yes, I feel like I'm a Moses. Only God could bring those types of experiences out. And he received something in his shoebox that was a light unto the world. He received a headlight that goes on his head. And he said, it lights and it shines into the darkness. Amazing. God is amazing.
It really seems that these children, by and large, are very, very educated, and a lot of them speak fluent English.
They do. If they're allowed to or enabled to go to school, they learn English.
And that's a privilege. I mean, we've talked about that before, where it's like kids here it's a drag. You don't want to go to school. You don't want to go to school. Kids there, it's a privilege. They want to go to school.
They want to go to school. Yeah. And since I was there, I really saw the great need. Even the children who are privileged to go to school need supplies for their school. They need pencils that write with erasers on the end. And the instruments that we saw, the pencils were broken or missing the eraser on the end. So I would encourage anybody packing a shoebox, make sure you put plenty of school supplies in those shoe boxes, because that enables them to go to school.
Something you picked up
yeah,
that you wouldn't have if you weren't there.
I saw a great need for that.
Yeah, very good. Again, Wally Zaiolo joins us. And in closing, God laid something else on your heart. I know you and your wife have been praying a great deal about this. But in addition to presenting those shoe boxes, God had something else in store for you there.
He did. He sent me over there on a very special mission, and I felt it deep in my heart. My wife also felt it, and I just asked God to show me the one that he sent me for. And on our third day, we were at an orphanage, and I had a special shoebox I wanted to give out, and I asked the director of the orphanage, "Is there any orphans here?" And she said there was a boy and there was a girl. And I felt deep in my heart I was meant to meet a boy orphan. So I asked to be introduced to him, and I talked to him. Ironically, this is the church that I gave the testimony at, that I told about the love of Jesus Christ to orphans. I had been partially orphaned by my father when he left. So we had a connection already. I'd given my presentation. I met this boy. He's 12 years old. His name is Akram. And we were talking. I asked him how everything was and what he was up to, and he looked right at me and said, "Will you be my father?" And we knew instantly that he was the one that God had sent me to find or to meet, and we are in the process of adopting him and finding out about adoption for him.
Congratulations. That's amazing. And you were sharing with me off air that he was not the first child that you met. There were a few others that God kind of presented to you, and then they were taken away until this one was obviously the one.
God was working with me as a child. He was reminding me of his parables and his direction in his word. And other children were presented. I thought maybe they were the one, but I kept saying, "God, is this the one? Is this the one?" And there was even one child. He was so bold. He was always in my camera view. And I jokingly said, "Are you the one?" And he said, "Yes, I am the one." But he wasn't even the one. And God reminds me of the deceptive. There will come many in my name, but don't be deceived. There is only one. I am the one. And obviously Akram was the one that God had sent me to meet. So don't be deceived. When the enemy comes to be deceptive to you, make sure that you are really looking for the one.
Not that any of these children were enemies or anything like that.
No, of course not. But it just taught me to be very wary and to really follow God. What is his will? Who is he really calling us to minister to, or to love, or to offer his great message to?
Well, congratulations. That's an awesome story. I saw it posted on the Facebook first, and I was blown away by it, because I don't know how many, if any, people that you have shared this with, but I was unaware of this desire that God had given you and Jen. And when I saw it posted, I shared the comment that everybody else had, was kind of like, "Wow, whoa." So we'll be praying for you, brother. And
well, thank you.
Waiting for this to unfold in God's time.
And ironically, we talk about full circle stories with Operation Christmas Child. Typically, it's a child who's received a shoebox and then grows up to be a fanatic about shoeboxes and helps in that ministry because of how it touched their lives. And Jen and I are excited that we may have our own full circle story here in the Columbus area. Somebody who received a shoebox and then will become passionate about this very, very special ministry.
How can people get more details? How can they help out, Wally?
Well, I'd encourage you to go to the national website, which is SamaritansPurse.org. Or if you're in the Columbus area, our 6 counties around the Columbus area, you are more than welcome to check out ColumbusOCC.info. columbusocc.info. And we have a wealth of information on there. I'm actually going to be adding a page about the Uganda trip, so you can see our very special pictures of the children that receive shoeboxes and their expressions and how they receive those shoeboxes. And we'll be celebrating throughout the rest of this year this special trip. And then we also have a lady, a young woman from our Columbus area that's going to be going to Mongolia in July. So when she comes back, she'll also have wonderful stories about how God worked his miracles.
Very good. Wally Ziola, our special guest. Always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.